I love it. So I play at weddings and corporate events. I play for a lot of livery dinners, like up and down the country.
How do you work with couples to choose the right music for the day? How much input do you have, or do they have? How does that work?
I give them a list of everything I can play and just say, choose anything from there. And I also learn 3 new songs for every booking. So if people want something that's not on there, then they've got that option as well. I don't know if it's about so much keeping them entertained, but it's just providing that ambience and that atmosphere.
There's usually a few potential dull spots of the day, and that's probably the first one. The exciting bit's finished and now guests are kind of sat waiting.
It's just a beautiful sound as well, and it's instantly relaxing. I've had a groom, waiting in the ceremony before, just being like, you chilled me out so much because I was so nervous, and then I heard you playing the song I wanted, and that was it. I was just like, I'm calm, I can do this now.
Hello and welcome to the I Do's and Do Nots podcast. If you're planning your dream wedding, then this is definitely the podcast for you. I'm Chris Wardle. I'm a luxury wedding videographer from Lifestyle Visuals, and each and every episode I'll be joined by a range of wedding experts to discuss tips, tricks, the do's, the don'ts, all when planning your special and unique day. So let's get into today's episode. So today I'm joined with Harriet Flather.
Yes.
You're a professional harpist.
I am,
So thank you very much for coming on the I Do's and Do Nots podcast. Just a little line from your website. It says you're a professional harpist and you help engaged couples add a personal, memorable and unique touch to their wedding day by providing them with beautiful music. You're fun and approachable, and you're 100% invested in their wedding from day one.
That is, I don't remember writing that, but that is true, yeah.
That's really, really
word
lovely.
for word, yeah, that's true.
So just as a quick overview, it's probably fairly obvious, but today's episode is going to be about live music at weddings and how music can transform your wedding in certain elements of the day, different parts of the day. And we'll sort of talk about your background. Amazing. And how couples should consider having live music throughout their different parts of the wedding day. So as is tradition, we always start with a quick fire question round, which I believe you're semi-prepared for. So you've been watching some of the episodes. So let's get into it. As always, we start with a few generic ones and then go into some more wedding specific. So hometown.
Oakham in Rutland.
Are you married?
I am.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Probably a night owl these days.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely used to be a morning person.
Used to be?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dream holiday destination?
New York or St. Lucia.
Nice. Favourite season?
Autumn.
Rap, pop or rock music?
Pop, probably. Bit of a pop princess, I think.
Yeah. Introvert or extrovert?
Oh, I'm like in the middle. One of those.
I don't know
people.
what the term is for that. I'm sure there is one. Okay, so more wedding specific then. Do you prefer a UK wedding or an abroad wedding?
UK, but I would love to do an abroad wedding.
Large wedding or intimate?
Intimate.
Country house or barns?
I knew you were going to ask that. It's so hard because a barn has such lovely acoustic, but country house, I'm like, I love like the history of it, and it's just got some elegance and style to it.
Band or DJ?
Band, 100%.
Yeah, don't like this pre-recorded nonsense here. Traditional or unique?
Probably traditional.
Kids allowed or not allowed?
Oh, we can maybe get into that later, but I'm going to say not allowed.
Okay. Well, you remind me if we forget. Summer or winter weddings?
Winter.
Possibly autumn.
Or autumn, yeah.
Indoor or outdoor ceremonies?
Indoor.
Speeches before the meal or after?
Before.
Wine or champagne?
Champagne.
Beer or spirits?
Spirits.
Last one, leaving early or last person standing? And that's as a guest.
Last person standing.
Amazing. All right. So hopefully we've learned a bit about your personality there. So first things first, do you want to just give us a quick overview about who you are, obviously what you offer, a little bit about your background, how you got to what you're doing today?
Sure. It's a bit of a long-winded story, but so I started playing the harp when I was about 10, I think. And I already played the clarinet, and through school took them both to a high level, and then had to decide which one I was going to pursue as a career, and I actually chose the clarinet. So I went off to university at age 17 to study that for 4 years. And then at the end of that, I had what a lot of musicians have at the end of their university or their music college experience, which is just like a crisis of confidence. I was like, I never want to play the clarinet again. I never want to do anything again, like any music.
Yeah.
But I had this booking in my diary to play the harp at a friend's wedding about 9 months later. And that was like the start of me coming back into performing. And I loved it. And I think at that point I was like, well, I've got to try and make a career out of something. So I might as well try music. It was all much more nuanced than I make it sound.
Yeah.
And then from there, the harp just kind of has become my career. And I love it. So I play at weddings and corporate events. I play for a lot of livery dinners, like up and down the country. Like this week I've been in Hampshire, London. I'm in Rutland this week. Cambridge next week. I'm always in the car.
So it is your full time?
It is my full-time job.
Nice.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know, but many wedding industry professionals have day jobs, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good that you're doing it full time. And do you play any other instruments?
I do. So I've come back to the clarinet and I play the saxophone and flute as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more to the story, or does that bring us up to today?
I think that probably brings us up to date.
So how did you start getting bookings?
I remember my first wedding fair. Oh my gosh, it was awful. It was 4 hours, like a lot of them are, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I thought I have to play the whole time, obviously. So I played for 4 hours straight. I didn't have a break.
Oh.
I was in so much pain afterwards. It was horrible, and I didn't get a single booking because obviously I wasn't stopping to chat to anyone or anything like that. I just didn't know what I was doing, and I think I can't even remember where they started to come from after that. It might have been recommendations, or I joined a couple of directories, set up my website, and then, I mean, now I'm in the lucky position where the inquiries are just flowing in. But I do remember those first days, like I would get so invested in a couple, and if they didn't book, I'd be heartbroken.
Yeah. Well, we've all been there.
Yeah.
So I know you said you do corporate stuff as well. So the question was, what kind of inspires you to focus on performing at weddings? Do you have a soft spot for weddings?
I do, yeah. I think like the majority of my work is weddings. And the thing I love about them is adding that unique touch and making the music something that is like truly memorable. Because everyone has music at their wedding, but I do think that A, having it live, and B, having it on quite an unusual instrument, it just adds such it's a talking point for people, but it just adds such like a different element to the day.
And how long have you been going into weddings? How many seasons have you done?
Coming up, I've just 7.5 years since that first wedding. Yeah.
So you got the hang of it by now.
I think so, yeah. Someone asked me if I get nervous the other day, and I was like, no, I actually can't remember the last time I got nervous for a wedding.
No, I'm the same. I used to be like painfully nervous, like not sleeping before the wedding, just like having, dreams that stuff's going to go wrong, or but to be honest, now I just kind of wake up completely calm and chilled, which is a good thing. I think it just takes a bit of time. So have you got any favourite memories from past wedding performances? Or have they all been pretty?
I've got a few. They're generally about the venue though. Like, so I still think the best wedding I ever did was at Chatsworth House, and it was February 2020. I remember when the couple inquired, I was like, I will give you money off because I just want your wedding. It was amazing. And the staff were incredible. And to get from the ceremony to the drinks, you had to go across this cobbled courtyard. And they gave me like an escort. Like I had like bodyguards around the harp.
Really?
It was insane. And then to get in easily to the drink section, I had to go through the gift shop.
Okay.
And they literally moved a whole display in the gift shop for me to get my harp in properly. And I was like, I do not get this everywhere. This is so lovely.
So a bit more of that Well, for the venues listening. Okay, so in your opinion, why is music such a crucial element as part of the wedding day?
It's so personal. And I think as well, music has that ability to take us back to a particular place. So when I got married, I walked down the aisle to the processional from The Sound of Music, which I've always loved. But now when I hear it, like I'm getting it now, I literally get goosebumps because I remember that specific feeling of walking down the aisle to that piece of music. And I think you can love a song, but then when you have it at that like core memory moment of your life, it takes on a whole new meaning for you. And a lot of weddings I've been to as a guest and have also obviously played at, the music has played such an important role. And it's just, that's what I remember from the wedding is the music. I remember like what they walked into or what the first dance was or something. Oh, for me, that's like more important than the food. And I think a lot of my couples, maybe not more important than the food, but they feel similarly.
Yeah, and I think there's such a big difference between it being performed live and often badly being played through a stereo system that's often either not very good or cutting out because the Bluetooth is out of range or something like that. That happens more times than not.
Yeah.
There's definitely a much nicer feel from it being live. And I always like those videos on TikTok. What's that station in London with the piano?
St Pancras has got one.
Yeah. Some of those videos are amazing when people just hop on that piano and they just play like songs that you recognise, but it's piano.
Yeah.
And I love watching those.
Yeah, they're incredible. And the talent of the people on them as well. It's amazing.
There's one of these two lads where there's two of them side by side and they're just bouncing off each other and they're almost like mind reading of where they're going, and they go through like 5, 6, 7 different songs and they're all like rap genre, which is more like
nice,
what I like, but obviously that's not typically on piano. So I was just like, wow, I like watch the whole thing.
That's incredible.
So the harp specifically, why do you feel that's the best instrument for a wedding? If you do, I assume you do.
I do. I think I do. Yes.
Or what is let's stop that. So what are the most common options? Shall we go first? So what are the most common options for instruments?
So I would say saxophonists are getting really, really popular, especially for like a drinks reception or the wedding breakfast. String quartets are still really popular.
Yeah.
Pianists as well, acoustic singers, guitarists, and harpists. I would say we're in that category of the popular ones as well.
Okay. So why would you say you should go for a harp above anything else?
There's a few reasons. First of all, it is so unique. It is. Like when I was first started doing events and everything, guests would say to me, "Oh, you just never see a harp." And I'd be like, "Don't you?" Because I've like been around them my whole life. And actually it took me a little while to realise, no, not everybody else has ever even like been up close to a harp. So it is a really unique experience. Also, you're only booking one person, which sometimes means it's cheaper than booking an ensemble. And I don't need any power or anything, so I haven't got any of those restrictions. And it's just a beautiful sound as well, and it's instantly relaxing. Like I've had a groom, waiting in the ceremony before, just being like, "You chilled me out so much," because I was so nervous, and then I heard you playing the song I wanted, and that was it. I was just like, "I'm calm. I can do this now."
That's nice.
Yeah.
So, how much? So, say it's. I know, obviously, we'll come on to that. You can perform at different parts of the day, which again I think is important to talk about. But for the ceremony specifically, like, at what parts are you playing?
So I normally start to play about sort of 20 minutes before the ceremony begins, just before the venue start bringing in the guests.
Okay.
And then I play for the bride or groom's entrance into the ceremony, then the signing of the register, which is kind of like, that downtime in the ceremony, and then when the couple leave as well.
You do need that at the signing of the registry, because
definitely.
there's usually a few potential dull spots of the day, and that's probably the first one.
Yeah.
Where the exciting bit's finished and now guests are kind of sat waiting. So to have that filled with a bit of ambience and atmosphere, that definitely. And obviously you said about the fact they're quite portable, there's no power. I assume that means you can potentially perform outside. Is that right?
Yes, can play outside. And I don't mind it. On a very windy day, it's quite difficult sometimes because you just don't know where the sound is going.
Okay.
But I've never had any complaints. So
it works
that's good.
better when there's kind of ceilings that it can bounce around.
Yeah, exactly. You just got a better acoustic, which I think would be the same for any instrument, to be honest.
Yeah. But it means that if someone wanted to book you for longer, where you can play the ceremony and then maybe later go to a different part of the venue, you could definitely do that.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I mean, sometimes it requires putting the harp back in the car. Like if it's quite like difficult terrain or something, it's just easier to do that. But most of the time I just put the harp back on its trolley and wheel it to wherever it needs to go.
So beyond the ceremony, how can music be used to keep guests entertained throughout the day? Like whatever parts of the day would you recommend someone could consider having some live music playing to keep guests kind of entertained? So
definitely the drinks reception, because there could, depending on how many photos you have, there can just be like a few guests, and it just I don't know if it's about so much keeping them entertained, but it's just providing that ambience and that atmosphere.
Yeah. That's probably the better way of saying it. Like I said, there's the first dole points of the day.
Yeah.
First one is the registry signing, and then the next one is the drinks reception if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite common to have either a musician, a live singer, or an alternative like maybe an artist or something, often combined a lot of the time, because obviously the artist doesn't make any noise, but it is a focal point that is kind of something that's a little bit memorable. So yeah, aside from drinks reception, any other moments that...
So I think the wedding breakfast can work if it's like for an acoustic musician like myself, if it's a smaller wedding. So I don't normally recommend that couples book me for a wedding breakfast if it's more than 50 people, because you just won't hear it, quite frankly. You just won't. And I have played for a couple of first dances before, which has been really lovely actually, when they've happened like just like straight after the meal, then they've maybe done the cake and then they've gone into the rest of the night later. And is that them requesting a song which you then learn, or how does that work? And sometimes I've done it where it's the same that the bride has walked down the aisle to, and then they've had it as like their song later on, which is quite nice. Then they'll definitely remember it. Definitely, it's like their soundtrack to the day. Later down, many years to come, they'll be like, that was our wedding song. That's lovely. So for couples that are potentially looking to book yourself or a harpist or any kind of musician, what kind of logistical challenges should they be aware of? Like, it's always helpful whether the couple sort of thinks about us as suppliers. Definitely. Is there anything they should be aware of, or asking the venue to make sure happens so you've got it easy to set up? And yeah, definitely access to the venue, because the front door is not always the best route to go in to unload like equipment or to move the harp or anything like that. So yeah, definitely access parking as well. Like being able to get close to wherever you're unloading is so important. And with the harp in particular, I say to people, think of it like you've got somebody in a wheelchair. Like if there's a ramp, can I have the ramp? If there's step-free access, can I have that step-free access? Like it just makes my life so much easier. So you're mainly using a big trolley from the sounds of it? Yes. Right? So it looks like a kind of like a porter's trolley basically, but it's specialised for the harp. And do you need any sort of assistance with that, or No. So this is one of my like bugbears. Is it's always really kind when people offer, but because the harp is like it's heavier at one side than the other, it's quite unwieldy to move around. You need to know what you're doing. When I then refuse that offer of help, it really annoys me when people still try and help. Okay. Because they just think like, oh, but I can help her. Like she's struggling. I'm not struggling. I just need to be strong at that moment to pull it up the steps or whatever. And if someone tries to
tip the weight balance wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
you could end up
like
in
the harp has fallen over before as a result of someone doing that.
Are they quite vulnerable? I don't know.
Yeah, they are. Because all the weight is, as I say, at like one side of it. So if it's windy or anything like that, they can be quite vulnerable.
Okay. And what about a less traditional wedding? Is there still sort of scope for having either live music or harps there?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I did a wedding recently where everything was outside. It was in a woodland, and it all had like a Viking theme, which was quite fun.
Nice.
And they did like a hand fasting, and they had, celebrant wedding and all that kind of thing. And the harp just like fitted in beautifully because it was, everything about the wedding was like just a little bit different, and the harp just fitted that perfectly.
Yeah, because like you say, a lot of people don't see them every day.
Exactly.
Okay. So I think we've heard a lot about how music can really bring the day to life. In terms of where do couples approach trying to locate a musician? Obviously, I know you travel most of the UK, so they can reach out to you, and we'll bring your details up at the end. But is there any sort of websites where people can look for musicians of different genres? And I don't know if there's specialist sites for musicians.
There's loads, actually. And there's some of the big ones are Bands for Hire. They don't only do bands, they do like all sorts of musicians. Alive Network is another one. Encore Musicians is a really good one. But then there's some smaller ones as well. Like there's a local one called DG Music, which is an agency that's based locally, but they have musicians all over the country. They used to represent Boney M.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Right.
And there's one in London with Lockie Music, it's called. It's run by Cressida. She's really lovely. And they like hand pick the musicians that are on their books as well. But there are loads, and I think
was going to say, you just made me kind of think, because there is companies I don't know what, I guess they'd call themselves entertainment companies, where they kind of provide a full package.
Exactly, yeah.
So they might book yourself as part of their kind of full package.
Mm-hmm.
I know at our wedding, we had a DJ, but it was I don't know if you've seen it, like the live bongos.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then the live
cool.
sax.
Yeah, yeah.
So it takes like the pre-recorded music, and then they're live performing to match the songs. Amazing. With the bongos and then the saxophonist. And it really takes like a DJ set to like way to the next level.
Yeah.
And it's so, even just the saxophonist, the bongos are cool, to be fair, as well. Particularly because obviously they really get into it, and like the guests are then seeing the bongo player going nuts, and the saxophonist, there's a guy called Spencer Sax.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you work with him. He was with the company that we booked, and now I've worked with him since. And he gets in amongst the guests on the dance floor, and he's got his saxophone with the wireless mic pack, so it's getting made louder through the sound system as well. That's and awesome. He's like really fun, like he really gets into it, and he makes the guests like have a good time, basically.
You mentioned a really good point there, actually, about like the guests seeing the performance. It does make such a difference. Like, I think if you just have recorded music, it's like a song you've heard a million times.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a live element to it, whatever that is, it's like anything. It's like live sport, theatre, anything. Like the energy it creates, it's just magical. It really is.
And that's not just on the dance floor. That's at any point of the day. Like I'm sure you have people stood there recording you on their phone, or they'll come up to you afterwards and say how great it is, that kind of thing. It's another talking point.
Exactly.
And another memorable element. So we don't have to talk about specific costs, but what sort of budget should people be allocating for sort of live performances? I know it can vary depending if it's a singular person or a group.
Yeah.
What sort of costs?
So for a band, you're probably looking at least £1,000 for like a 4-piece band for the evening. For a musician during the day, probably between sort of £400 to £800 if you include the kind of travel and everything like that, and obviously how long you want them for.
Yeah.
I do also charge for a hotel if it's further than 2.5 hours, because when I'm driving, I'm in the same body position as when I'm playing the harp, and then I basically can't play the next day. So I'm just like, I need a rest. I need a break. Yeah. But it can vary massively.
Yeah. And like I say, if you do end up booking a full entertainment package, then that's going to include potentially your DJ, all the other add-ons.
Yeah. And agency fees as well if you book through an agency.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, even on other stuff through my sort of corporate work I try and avoid working through agencies because you're just paying that additional fee. If you can find someone direct, then obviously that's going to be the best cost.
Yes.
Obviously people can contact you direct through your website as well. And then some of the websites you mentioned, have a browse through there. I'm sure there's quite a few independents that you can reach out to directly, and you'll get the best price, and they're still being paid fairly. Okay, so how do you work with couples to choose the right music for the day? Like, how much input do you have, or do they have? How does that work?
It's different for every couple. Like, some people are very relaxed about what they have. I've got a wedding next week where they've just said, play whatever like you want, basically. Play what you think is going to sound good. And then other people will send me a list of 100 songs saying, we want all of these. And so that kind of input is, it differs from wedding to wedding.
Up to the couple, really.
Yeah. But I give them a list of everything I can play, and just say, choose anything from there. And I also learn 3 new songs for every booking. So if people want something that's not on there, then they've got that option as well.
And what sort of genre, like obviously I mentioned earlier, the piano, they're primarily playing like rap songs. Like, what's the sort of level you can go to in terms of...
It depends. It depends on the song. I love it when people are like, "Oh, can you break out the Metallica?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, yes, I can." Like,
really,
I can do a bit, and nothing else matters. Yeah.
So you can sort of, I don't know the technical. Is it the riffs? You can play the riffs of the...
I think that's a technical term. Yeah.
I don't know. So it's obviously on the harp, but you can hear the song.
Yeah, definitely.
You recognise it.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there any... what's the hardest song you've had to learn, or the most fun maybe?
The most fun. It's often a song that I'm like, I should have learnt this sooner. Like, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. My mind's gone blank now. Like some stuff from films, like concerning hobbits and Lord of the Rings. I had one person ask for that. I'm probably asked for that at like 40% of my weddings now. And it's so nice to play. Either they've heard it or they just like Lord of the Rings. And it's like just a nice, recognisable melody from it.
They've not watched a video on your Instagram or something?
Not necessarily. Some people have. Like, I've had people send me links to my Instagram videos before and being like, we want this song.
Yeah, well, that's
Which
cool.
is great, yeah.
And that's another thing. I know, obviously, we talked about certain websites for booking people. Obviously, there's social media is a huge way of finding all vendors. So what other ways would you suggest people look? Like, what social media accounts are best for finding musicians?
So all of those agencies I mentioned should have their own social media accounts. But probably it's best to go direct to the website for that, because, as you know, often videos are not suitable for social media, and it's better just to watch it in full on a bigger screen, and you get more of an idea of actually what's...
But do you have like a YouTube maybe?
I do have a YouTube. It's not as well updated as it should be, definitely. But there's some stuff on there. Yeah. That needs to be one of my to-dos to do more on there.
But presume if you go on Instagram and search like hashtag harpist or wedding harpist.
Wedding harpist,
you should start to discover people.
Definitely, yeah.
That's my way of sort of looking generally.
Yes.
And obviously Google should bring up your local suppliers. And you can either, obviously most people travel UK wide anyway, but either book someone that's local to you or local to the venue.
Yeah. Or asking the venues as well.
Yeah, venue recommendations.
Having the recommended lists and everything, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of venues will give you a recommendation list, and it gives you a few options. But I would say don't always just book the recommended venue.
I agree.
People.
It gives you a starting point.
Yeah, because I'm not on very many recommended venue lists, to be honest, because 9 times out of 10 I'm at a new venue.
Oh,
There's
really?
a
That's
handful
cool.
of venues, probably 2 or 3 that I've worked at like multiple times. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend just using the supplier list because you end up with just the same thing that everyone's had.
That's very true.
And that's not always the best thing.
Yeah.
But
I have had an inquiry before for a venue. I can't even remember where it was. And they said I was on the recommended list. And I was like, I've never heard of this venue. And the venue had obviously found me online and thought, oh, she sounds good. We'll put her on our list.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know if we're on the list or not.
Exactly.
There's a few that I assume I must be because I get quite a few inquiries consistently.
Yeah.
But they never tell us anyway.
No, true.
Okay. And for couples that are unsure what music they might want, where do you suggest they start looking?
I would go for YouTube to start and literally just type in the name of the song and then put in cover after it and just see what comes up and see whether you like it. Piano, harp, string quartet, like it's all on there. And then you can try and find a musician close to you who matches that.
And do you have like a library that you send to clients, or is it just they go on the website and see what's on there?
So yeah, I have a repertoire list that I send to people, but they don't get that until they've booked.
Okay.
Purely because I've had it a few times where people have asked to hear a little bit of a song and then I've never heard from them again.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know where that little recording's gone. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, couples don't get that now until they've booked. But yeah, like my most popular ones are all on my website and on YouTube as well.
Amazing. So I think we've covered off everything harp and live music related. I think we've covered
all bases, yeah.
So where do couples find yourself? How do couples find you?
So the best place is Instagram. I'm on there all the time. So I'm Harriet Flather Musician on there. Also my website, harrietflather.co.uk. And just come and say hello.
Best way to inquire?
Through the website. Then I get all the information I need.
And what sort of information do they need to be providing you with?
So I always ask, obviously, for venue, date, and how many guests they're having. And then I kind of know what might work best in that venue.
Will you suggest how many hours they might need, or do they tell you?
So there's also an option on there, to say what they're looking for, like if it's just the ceremony and drinks or whatever. But for example, if a couple had selected they wanted the wedding breakfast, but they're having 150 guests, I would know straight away that that's just not going to work. And so I just kind of ask for a bit more information about their day, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, well, your information will be on the screen.
Amazing,
and in the links below. There is a final finisher, which I often forget to do, but it's the controversial question, which is, if you were planning your own wedding, what's the one thing / supplier that you would cut to save money?
Oh my God, that's brutal.
It doesn't have to be brutal though. Like, what's one thing that you think is overrated or overhyped that can potentially cost a lot of money or takes budget? Wedding favours.
Yeah. And just seemingly free stuff for guests. It's like they're getting a day of free hospitality anyway.
And they're often left.
Oh, aren't they just? Or if it's like a little bottle of gin or something, you're not even allowed to drink it on the day. And then they always get left. Yeah.
Whereas venue specific, but venues often don't like you bringing your own alcohol.
No.
If they do, then alcohol is probably one of the favours that does disappear.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can't think of many things, but they're always left on the table at the end of the day. And people spend a huge amount of time either home making them, which most people do tend to home make the favours, or I presume spent a lot of money on them and they're left behind. And that the whole point of this question is that budget could go elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So say that frees you up 400 or 500 quid. That 500 quid is potentially going to go somewhere else, such as a harpist.
Well, quite.
And make a much bigger impact to your wedding day.
Yeah, people will not, well, they won't. No, I was going to say they won't take the harpist home, but that sounds really weird.
But
they'll never, how I meant it to sound.
they'll never forget it.
No, exactly.
But they'll definitely forget your wedding favours.
Exactly, yeah.
Probably within 10 minutes of leaving the room. Okay, so amazing. Thanks so much for coming on the I Do's and Do Nots podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hope to work with you at a wedding soon.
Yes, that would be lovely.